last presentation for the morning session is Eben, and for some reason I've been thinking about these kids in 8th grade today, and I remember, as I told you in the last presentation, that Troy was always in the dark. Well, Eben was always turned sideways, and so I saw the side of Eben's face all the time, always wondering, what are you looking at over there? What were you looking at? Okay. So, so Eben has chosen nuclear power as his topic, and he's been right on time with all of his assignments. And I'm being very sarcastic when I say that. But he's put it together now. We're looking forward to it. Here's what Eben says. He says, first and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to God Almighty, whose blessings, strength, and guidance have made this journey possible. I am sincerely thankful to my parents and family for their unwavering love, patience, and endless support throughout my academic life. Their encouragement has been my backbone through every challenge. Did you write another essay?
No.
It's like a whole page. It's good, though. It's good. A special thanks goes to Boo Yossi and Mr. Wade Strickland, whose guidance, constructive feedback, and insightful advice played a crucial role in shaping the direction of this work. Your dedication and belief in my potential have meant a great deal to me. To my teachers and mentors, thank you for the knowledge, motivation, and inspiration that helped me grow both academically and personally. To my friends and classmates, thank you for the laughs, the late-night discussions, and the emotional support during the hardest moments. You made this journey enjoyable and meaningful. Finally, to everyone who contributed to this project in ways big or small, I'm grateful for your kindness and generosity. This work would not have been possible without you. Now we'll get to the thesis. Eben's title is The Godzilla of Renewable Energy, Nuclear Energy Powering Indonesia's Better Socioeconomic Tomorrow. Give me a second to set up the timer and I'll tell you when you can start. All right, you can start whenever you're ready.
I can start? Okay. Imagine a teenager, full of life, physically fit, and hopeful. He steps into a time machine set to the year of 2050, curious what would Indonesia be in the future. However, as soon as he steps out, he chokes. The air is heavy. It's toxic. The skies once blue are now gray. His lungs burn. This is not science fiction, guys. It's a warning. According to Farid Wijaya, a senior analyst for renewable energy and materials at the IESR, 80% of Indonesia still depend on fossil fuel for its energy. This grim future is a possibility. The future where the air kills faster before old age does, where our children breathe poison instead of promises. However, what if? What if we could rewrite this future? What if there's a solution that's misunderstood, powerful, clean, and ready? And that solution, ladies and gentlemen, is nuclear energy. It's not just science, it's a survival strategy. It's a solution that could power hospitals, light up villages, and save lives without choking the sky. Today, I'm not just going to tell you everything about nuclear energy. I'm going to tell you how it can change everything. Let's go back over a century ago. Henry Becquerel discovers radioactivity, then the Curies isolate radium and polonium. Einstein's give us E equals mc squared, and Otto Hahn splits the atom. And from there, the age of nuclear energy begins. And yes, that age brought fear. It brought bombs, but also light. In 1951, the first electricity from nuclear energy lit up 4 humble bulbs from Idaho. Just 3 years later, the USSR had functioning nuclear power plant. France, the UK, soon followed. And today, France generates over 70% of its electricity from nuclear. And South Korea's grid is low emission and stable. Guys, these are not fantasy scenarios. They are living realities. Before deciding whether Indonesia should invest in nuclear energy, let's get something straight. We can't discuss clearly if we don't define what we're talking about. Nuclear energy may sound complex, but at its core, it's simple. It's power created by splitting atoms, a process called fission that releases immense heat, which spins turbines and produces electricity. The fuel is uranium, a naturally occurring element that delivers massive energy without releasing carbon in the air. While often excluded from the label green, nuclear is a low-emission energy source, cleaner than coal, steadier than wind, and more scalable than solar. Unlike renewables that depend on weather, nuclear runs 24/7, providing constant electricity to meet growing national demand. Talking about energy demands, Indonesia's energy demand is growing fast. With every rise in population and economic activity, the demand for energy increases. And right now, that demand is met by coal. Over 80% of our electricity still comes from fossil fuels, especially coal and oil. These sources have powered us for almost 60 years, but they're also slowly poisoning the air that we breathe. And the problem isn't just health. Coal and oil are major contributors to climate change. They heat the planet, they damage the air, and hurt future generations. This is a quality of life issue and a moral one. The Bible tells us in Genesis 2, verse 15, that humanity was placed in a garden to work it and take care of it. So this isn't just science, it's stewardship, it's responsibility. But replacing fossil fuels isn't easy. Nuclear energy has been discussed in Indonesia since the 1960s. Research reactors were even built in Bandung and Yogyakarta, yet large-scale development never materialized. Today, Indonesia's national energy policy lists nuclear as a serious option after 2030, especially for high-demand regions like Java and Bali. Still, challenges remain. Our location on the Ring of Fire means any nuclear power plant must be built to world-class safety standards. And public fear, shaped by Chernobyl and Fukushima, is real. Understandable, but fear can be managed with facts and with trust. That's why the government established BAPETEN, the nuclear energy regulatory agency that oversees every step of the process. No plants get built without their approval. In short, nuclear is complex, but not impossible, and if managed wisely, it can offer massive benefits. 3 proofs to support my thesis: nuclear energy can bring 3 major socioeconomic impacts: job creation in science, engineering and local economies, energy security that reduce our dependence on volatile fossil fuel markets, and lower pollution, which leads to healthier citizens and lower healthcare costs. Now, let's talk about people. Let's talk about jobs. And Lao Tzu once said, "Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, and teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime." Now, imagine a coastal town in central Java, once quiet, struggling, and overlooked. Most young people left in search of work. The elders stayed behind, watching the town slowly fade. Then, everything changed. The government built a nuclear power plant nearby, and opportunity followed. Construction brought hundreds of jobs, not just for engineers, but for drivers, cooks, technicians, and local businesses. One young man, a high school graduate, was trained as a plant worker, and now he earns enough to support his family and send his sister to college. Now, the town has paved roads, better schools, and growing sense of pride. What was once forgotten is now thriving. This isn't fiction. In the United States, the construction of 2 nuclear power plants reactor at Plant Vogtle supported up to 9,000 workers at peak construction and created 800 permanent jobs when they came online in 2023 and 2024. And the ripple effect, for every 100 nuclear jobs, around 250 more are created in surrounding areas, from supply chain to service sectors. And where there are jobs, there is peace. Where people work, they stop fighting to survive. Study shows that employment is tied to lower crime rates, stronger communities, and better education. Job creation leads to social cohesion, and social cohesion leads to national strength. Let's talk about something that touches every home, every wallet, and every future: stability. Not just in our power grid, but in our economy, in our ability to grow, to invest, to breathe easy. In 2023, Indonesia spent nearly 36 billion on fossil fuels. Let me repeat that, 36 billion. That's 36 billion leaving our shores every single year to power a system that pollutes our air and chokes our skies. And at the same time, we emitted 728 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. Now let's be honest, that's not just unsustainable, it's reckless. Nuclear energy changed the game once you build a nuclear plant. It runs for 60 to 80 years. It doesn't rely on fluctuating global markets. It doesn't wait for sunshine or wind. It delivers clean, stable energy day and night, season after season. That means predictable cost, and predictably is power. When businesses know their energy bills won't spike next quarter, they invest, they hire, they grow. Nuclear also enable long-term energy contracts, power purchase agreements or the PPAs, contracts for difference or CFDs. These aren't buzzwords. They're financial tools that protect us from market chaos. They lock in low prices and attract international investors. Look at South Korea, a country that embraced nuclear. Their electricity from nuclear costs about $39 per megawatt hour. Coal, $69. Natural gas, even more, over $83. That gap is the difference between hardship and opportunity. And for families, that means more than just lower bill. It means money for school books, medicine, a business dream, and even a breathing room. This isn't just about kilowatts, it's about wisdom, about stewardship. Now, let me give you guys another Bible verse. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, while the fool gulps them down. Proverbs 21, verse 20. And the Quran, and if it's enough, we can get it from the Quran as well. Surah Al-An'am reminds us, do not waste, for Allah does not love wasteful. 2 faiths, 1 truth. Plan for tomorrow. Because energy is not just a commodity, it's a compass, and it should point towards security, towards sovereignty. Nuclear power doesn't just keep the lights on, it keeps breathing a nation strong. It keeps a nation strong. Now, let's pause and take a deep breath. Because the next time you do, ask yourself, what's in the air that we breathe? In Indonesia, the answer is painful: pollution. Every year, over 123,000 Indonesians die from air pollution. In Jakarta, life expectancy drops by 2.3 years. Not because of war, not because of famine, but because of the air. And the source? Mostly fossil fuels. Coal, oil, gas, they fill our skies with sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, and even particulates that sink deep into our lungs. This is not just an environmental issue. It's a public health crisis. And the cost? Astronomical. In Jakarta alone, air pollution leads over 2.94 billion in annual healthcare cost. Nationwide, the World Bank estimates that pollution-related losses cost us 6.6 of GDP. That's over 220 billion. Imagine what we could do with that money. Better hospitals, cleaner water, scholarship, infrastructure, hope. Now let's compare. Nuclear energy produces almost zero air pollution. Now, let's break it down. Coal emits about 1,050 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour. Natural gas emits about 450 grams. Nuclear, just 50 to 50 grams. That's not a small reduction, that's a whole transformation. In the United States, nuclear power prevents 470 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emission annually. That's the equivalent of removing 100 million cars from the road. If Indonesia shifted significantly to nuclear, we would cut nearly half of our emission, and we could save tens of thousands of lives. But there's more. Clean air isn't just about lungs, it's about leadership. The OECD and IMF now prioritize climate commitment when directing global investment. The message is clear. Countries that invest in clean, reliable energy attracts capital, technology, and trust. And as President Franklin D. Roosevelt once said, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. That's why nuclear energy is more than a power source. It's a signal. So let's stop accepting toxic air as normal. Let's stop sacrificing our health for electricity. Let's breathe better, live longer, and build cleaner. And let nuclear energy be the fresh start we all deserve. Now, let's face it, renewable energy sounds like an obvious choice. Solar panels on every roof, wind turbines on spinning distant hills. It feels clean. It feels right. And to be clear, we absolutely need solar and wind. They are vital pieces of the energy puzzle. But here's the reality, they are not enough. Not if we're serious about meeting enormous energy needs of our future. Even with aggressive expansion, renewables alone can't keep up. According to Sugeng Suparwoto, chair of Commission 7 in the Indonesian Parliament, if by 2060 our energy demand reaches 400 gigawatts, then without nuclear, it is almost impossible to meet that need. That's not just projection, that's a wake-up call. Because while solar and wind are abundant, they're also intermittent. They work only the sun shines and the wind blows. They don't follow human schedules or hospital timetables or industrial production lines. You can't run hospital on a sunny afternoon and hope patients don't get sick at night. You can't run a factory on a breeze and expect steady output. Energy must be constant, predictable, and reliable. That's where nuclear steps in, as a steady backbone of a clean energy system. While renewables fluctuate, nuclear delivers 24/7, rain or shine, weekday or weekend. Solar by day, wind by coast, and nuclear always. We've already seen the consequences of depending too much on intermittent sources. Now, let's take Germany as an example. Germany shut its nuclear power plant after the 2011 Fukushima, and emissions rose, coal made a comeback, and energy price soared. California experienced rolling blackouts in 2020 when solar dropped at sunset during a heat wave. The UK, in 2021, saw a 70% drop in wind output due to calm weather, and they had to restart coal plants. These weren't failures of technology, they were failures of planning. A grid without a stable base is a grid built on chance. Battery storage, it's improving, but it's still expensive, resource heavy, and limited. We can't storage enough electricity yet to power a city through a week of no wind and overcast skies. That's why nuclear fills the gap. With a 92% plus capacity factor, nuclear plants operate nearly non-stop. That's almost double the consistency of coal and gas and triple the reliability of solar and wind. So this isn't about choosing between opinions. It's about combining strength because climate change won't wait for perfect conditions. It demands every tool used wisely side by side. Now, let's address the hard truth. Nuclear is expensive to start. It takes upfront investment. It requires regulation, expertise, and time. Critics will call it slow and costly. But let's flip the question. What's the cost of not building it? The longer we delay, the more we pay in pollution, in medical costs, in lives, in lost opportunity. Nuclear is not a quick fix. It's a long-term foundation. A foundation that brings energy independence, industrial strength, and environmental responsibility. Because if we chase only what's cheap now, we'll pay dearly later. Let's be honest, building nuclear in Indonesia isn't plug and play. We are a vast archipelago with over 17,000 islands. Many regions don't have high-capacity transmission lines, and some still rely on isolated diesel generators. A nuclear plant isn't just about turning it on, it's about building the system around it. But we don't need to start everywhere, but we need to start somewhere. Regions like West Kalimantan and Bangka Belitung already have infrastructure and feasibility studies in place. That's where large-scale deployment makes sense. And for remote island or smaller province, small modular reactors or the SMRs offer flexible, scalable solutions. SMRs require less land, less infrastructure, and provide stable power for areas that need it most. In other words, the barriers are real, but the solutions are already in our hands. Let's stop asking, is nuclear too hard? and start asking, where do we begin? And whenever nuclear energy enters the conversation, there's always an elephant in the room: fear. And understandably so. We've all heard the names: Chernobyl, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island. They loom large public memory, often larger than the facts themselves. Because when something goes wrong with nuclear energy, it doesn't just make news, it makes history. But history deserves context. Chernobyl happened in 1986 in a Soviet-era reactor with no containment dome, under poor management and without transparency. That type of reactor would never be allowed anywhere in the world today. Fukushima was triggered by a once-in-a-millennium tsunami. The reactor shut down as designed. The failure came when backup generators were flooded, and even then, Japan responded by overhauling safety protocols nationwide. 3 Mile Island in 1979, no deaths, no injuries. The reactor shut itself down. The safety system worked. Now let's look at the bigger picture. In over 60 years of nuclear power operations worldwide, across more than 18,000 reactor years, there have been fewer than 100 deaths directly linked to nuclear energy accidents. Now, compare that to fossil fuels, which are responsible for millions of deaths every year from air pollution alone. So, ask yourself, which is the real danger? Today, nuclear power plants are not yesterday's. They are engineered with reinforced containment system, equipped with passive safety mechanisms that activate without human input, built with earthquake sensors and automatic shutdown protocols. And not to forget to mention, it is monitored 24/7 in real time. And in Indonesia, any proposed plant must go through a strict oversight of Bapeten, our national nuclear energy regulatory agency, modeled after the best safety standards in the world. The site selection itself is cautious. Like what I said before, West Kalimantan and Bangka Belitung are chosen for readiness, but for their distance, for their distance and major fault lines. Yes, fear is human, but so is reason. So is courage. If we judge air travel by the rare crash, we would never fly. If we judge medicine by its side effects, we will never heal. We cannot let isolated incidents, some decades old, outweigh decades of success. Let's judge nuclear not by fear, but by facts, by performance, by potential. Because when it comes to clean, reliable energy and protecting lives, the real risk isn't nuclear. The real risk is doing nothing. So, here we are, a nation rising, a people ready. The question is no longer can we build nuclear energy? It's will we? Will we choose progress or pollution? Will we choose boldness or fear? Imagine a future where children grow up breathing clean air, where villages thrive from new jobs, where Indonesia takes meaningful steps toward energy independence using cleaner, smarter, and future-ready solutions. This isn't just about powering homes, it's about shaping the kind of country we leave behind. Let's not wait, let's not watch others lead. Let's us stand up and say boldly, we are ready, we believe, and we will build. Let nuclear energy light the way for a brighter, stronger, and cleaner Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Very good. Our panelists today are Mr. Budi and Mr. Christian. We'll start with Mr. Budi.
Okay, Evan. Yeah.
Hi, Mr.
Hello.
Hi.
So you remind me of the presentations which you made last year on the math. I think you are one of the highest, for the presentations.
Thank you.
So don't ask about the other grade, but but thank you for all hard works. Yeah, your long nights, hours of gazing. Yeah, all the sweat, tears, maybe not blood. Okay, and for me, I thought that I'll end up as a petugas piket that do checklist for attendance, but instead I got a chance to see one of confident and powerful presentations of Thesis Defense. Please give applause for Evan. Yeah. And for this thesis, I think confidence is not enough. How you grasp and understand your material, okay, and how you master the material that you presented. And you begin with a good body gestures, clear pronunciations, and manage it through the end. So congrats, Eben. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so then let's go to the Q&A. Yeah. When I read your thesis, you're stating that countries like India and Pakistan shows how nuclear energy can positively influence economic growth.
Yes.
Okay. Now, first, on my opinion, economic growth depends on many factors.
Okay.
And in India, nuclear energy only contributes about 3% of total electricity generations. In Pakistan, nuclear energy is growing but still lags behind hydro and fossil fuels significantly. So while it's part of a system, it's not a major driver of economic growth compared to coal, hydro, or renewables. Now, my question is this. How do you respond to that? That, yeah, you stating that India and Pakistan shows how nuclear energy can positively influence the economic growth.
Let me give, can you give me 10 seconds to structure my answer? Okay. All right. So, from that statement, are you saying that nuclear energy is not really significant to economic growth?
I'm saying that to say economic growth, how it influences the economic growth, it depends on many things. It's not only on the energy. It can be for the communications. It can be for, it can come from the agriculture, the IT, the industrial reforms, many things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like one solely factor, which is the nuclear energy.
Yeah. Oh, I really agree from your statement that nuclear energy actually is not the main drivers of economic growth. However, at least it gives also economic growth and other significant solutions as well, such as I would say nuclear gives a cleaner air for the people in India and Pakistan since it produces zero pollutions, right? Which it's from that context itself, it's already better than economic growth, since uh, besides from economic growth, I would say our health is also important.
Okay, so you try to correlate between health, and how the energy can affect that. Have you ever looked on the other renewable resources besides solar and also wind?
Yes.
Yes.
Other than solar and wind,
Yeah.
like geothermal and hydro, like that.
Mm-hmm. What is the latest? Do you know what kind of technology they put?
I'm not sure, Mister.
Okay, do you ever heard space-based solar power?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay, so why not space-based solar power? Because in your thesis, you say that nuclear power is like a knight in a shining armor, right?
Yes.
I would say that the space-based solar power will be a hero forged in fire.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you stating this kind of thing, like it's best, to have nuclear. Why not space-based solar power?
So I would agree with space-based solar power, but I would still stand on my ground, which say that nuclear is the best solution. From the data I know that solar panel doesn't give much energy like nuclear does, and also the cost of solar. Uh, wait. Give me some seconds. Oh yeah, the cost of solar panel, especially in outer space, right? That's a solar panel in outer space. It is pretty costly, despite its energy output. So I would say that nuclear energy is better.
And the solar is not?
I would not tear them apart, but since we are targeting in green energy and renewable energy, which is like in Indonesia, it's like clean energy and it's renewable by 2030. I would say that a good mix in the energy grid of both is it's better, but I would say that nuclear is better.
Nuclear is better.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm thinking also if it happens that Indonesia has a nuclear power plants, yeah, and Indonesia will still likely depend on foreign countries if it adopts nuclear power. Several reasons, such as a technology dependence. Now, this technology, we don't have it. US probably have it. France, Russia, China, South Korea. So we still have we cannot operately independently. We still dependent on some countries. Not also to mention about the fuel supply. So Indonesia does have uranium reserves, but it currently lacks of the capacity to mine, to enrich, and fabricate the nuclear fuel. Could the dependency of imported nuclear technology and uranium subtly shift Indonesia energy sovereignty to foreign powers?
Can you repeat that?
Are we truly gaining energy independence, or are we handing the keys to our energy future to other nations through nuclear dependency?
I would not say that we are giving our independence on other nation, since we still can import technologies from South Korea. It is actually better than fossil fuel. It is better than fossil fuel. In my statement, I would say that if Indonesia could grow in the future, we would finally have our independence, learning from other technologies and other parts of nuclear power plant like that. Yeah.
We need to move to Mr. Christian now. Thank you.
All right. Hello, Alban. We meet again.
Yes.
Yes. So good job on the overall thesis, and good job with your presentation and the way you show your passion in the application of this technology. Yeah, it shows, and it seems to have pretty much improved in terms of your previous Karya Ilmiah. Well, it was a more simpler research after all in the past, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So without further ado, let's go with the questions then, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, so, well, technically there's a few questions that still resonate with me when you did your Karya Ilmiah last year with this topic as well. And so I kind of want to go back to them and see if you have actually given them further thought, which I think you also have already. For example, first one, the possible areas that is ideal for Indonesia to build nuclear power plants. You mentioned Bangka Belitung or Kalimantan and so on, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have maybe other specific areas, or like maybe near which towns or so on is more ideal? Because, I mean, Bangka Belitung is a set of islands, and Kalimantan is quite a big chunk of island as well, and land, right? So where exactly maybe has a bit of a first thought?
I would say, since they already make nuclear reactors also in Bandung and Yogyakarta, I would say Bandung and Yogyakarta is actually pretty feasible, because if everyone's issue, it's like, what about the radiation from nuclear energy? I would say that if nuclear radiation is measured by millisieverts, right? We could see the data that if you live near to a nuclear reactor, I got this data from the UN's CEAR, which is the United Nations Committee of Energy and Effects of Radiation. It would say that on the millisieverts, it's like 0.01 until 0.0001 millisieverts of radiation. That is very comparable. Imagine like if you eat a banana. Banana, in fact, actually have radioactivity, right? It contains potassium. and it gives you 0.0001 radiation, so it's very comparable. So if you live near a nuclear reactor, like I would say not that like next beside it, it will give you like almost the same amount of eating a banana a week, basically.
Okay. I do apologize, but you kind of gone off in a little bit because I was just asking about the location for that.
Yeah.
So now that you mentioned Bandung and Yogyakarta, then where exactly in Bandung? I mean, if we're looking at Bandung, it's pretty much like there's barely any land left, and anywhere near it is, full of dense forest. So are you saying that we might have to clear some land for this, or?
Yes.
Yeah. So where exactly maybe, or still maybe for the considerations needed?
For the considerations needed, I would leave it to the BRIN, which is before the Bapeten, to know the best locations, which is maybe in Bandung or West Kalimantan or Bangka Belitung, and so yeah.
Okay, good. Leaving it to the experts, I guess, yeah? All right. Now, of course, if we really want to take this into action, then there's a lot of factors that we have to also tackle internally. One of them was asked as well last year, right? Which is the mentality of, the building projects being attributed to certain presidents, for example, right? Last time with the example, you said that, the research is done and it requires 10 years to fully build and properly equip it with everything they need to have a functioning nuclear reactor. And the reaction was, can we do it in 5 years, right? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. How do we overcome this? Because, if we're talking about nuclear energy and nuclear power plants, we can't really skimp out on anything, right? We definitely have to have the best protection, the best materials, the best staff, and everything else. Any slip and any mistakes, or even just a slight, cheaper alternative in order to preserve cost or even time, will end up with another Chernobyl. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So how do we break through this sad mentality?
If the issue is time, I would say that everything that is worth it as well takes time. Which is like we could take examples like maybe building tolls and roads. Everything takes time. It doesn't need to be, how would say it? It needs to be pinned on the presidential status, because this project isn't about politics, but it's about the better future of Indonesia.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that answer. All right, so now for newer questions, and I have quite plenty actually, yeah, as long as the time is given. Okay, so let's continue with this. Now, this is kind of related to Mr. Budi's question, right? Which is about the nuclear dependency. So, what would be the ideal strategy for us to be implementing this? Because if we're being really honest, yes, we don't really have exactly the technology and the expertise yet to start building a nuclear power plant on our own from scratch and then maintaining it with proper protocols and everything, right? I mean, we do have those legislative boards and groups that maintain this kind of activity and considerations, but they haven't exactly made a functioning power plant like the ones that France, Japan, and so on have, right? So should we maybe depend on other countries first in the beginning, or maybe is there a strategy that we should think of in the long term?
From speaking from the conditions of Indonesia right now, I would say yes, we should import on countries that already have like successfully maintained nuclear power energy in their country. Since we don't want another Chernobyl, right? Why would we risk it, doing it our own, just because like we need to be independent? I would say maybe it counteracts with my independency, right? But if we want something that's independent, I would say that we can get it like fast right now. It takes time and it takes process. So I would say that it is better to import from other countries for the sake of better air and better electricity grid with also the growing demand of 2060 of 400 gigawatts.
Okay, so basically starting off, learning from the best, and then maybe developing independently after, or maybe just
Yes.
cooperatively.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Right. Now, another common issue, as you have mentioned, is the fear about the nuclear disasters that have happened in the past, right? And that fear is, again, well, justified, but also countered by the facts that are given. And yes, your arguments have shown that. But how do we how do we convince the common population about this? Like, for example, as I read through your thesis, I see a few sources saying, for example, one of them said, the citizens of Kudus, the area of Kudus, are rejecting the idea of a nuclear power plant, right? Okay, so how do we I kept saying confuse, sorry. How do we convince these people who aren't really that knowledgeable about nuclear power plants or even, the developments of it and the safety that has been applied to many other nuclear power plants without any issues about how do we bring them out of the darkness in a rough way?
I would agree that when there is a new power plant, people will ask questions. What is this new energy? What is nuclear energy? What is everything? What is this and that? However, we can convince by the facts and data shown. According to the United Nations Science Committee of Energy on the Effects of Radiation, it shows that if the radiation of a nuclear plant outside, which is like already regulated by the IAEA or the International Atomic Energy Agency, would say that it must be less than 0.01, which is safe. Logically thinking, why would you build a nuclear power plant that would just radiate the people, right? So that's why IAEA was made to that. We can convince the people. I would say a comparison. Everyone knows that Indonesia also have a smoking problem. Maybe at first it would say that this is like unrelatable to this topic. However, smoking also gives radiation, and that's a fact. Almost like about 150 millisieverts are given from smoking, from the tobacco, which is like lead and polonium. So why are you scared about nuclear energy, but not about smoking?
Okay, that's actually quite a contrast. Okay.
I need to jump in here. We've got about only a minute and 15 seconds or so left. I have a couple of questions for you. So, Eben, if trying to, and I'm not an expert on power at all, even my electrical engineering background. I'm still not an expert on power. But we're sitting, like you said, on the ring of fire. We've got active volcanoes everywhere. Mm-hmm. What about geothermal? I mean, do we really use it? Do we take advantage of geothermic power as much as we should? And isn't it a cleaner answer? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Is geothermal power really the best solution for Indonesia with all the hot air blowing out of the ground?
I believe in this from the things that you just said. I got like two questions. The first of being like, why should we build nuclear? We're in the ring of fire, right? There's a lot of earthquake, a lot of tsunami.
Yeah, but that's not really my question.
Oh,
my real question is all the geothermal energy all around us. Can't we take advantage of that and use that? Or is there some problem with geothermic power?
I agree about geothermal as well. It should work side by side since our target is a green economy with like less pollution and more renewable, right? Which is like, so we're not so dependent on something that is non-renewable like fossil fuel. I would say that we should work it side by side with nuclear as well. However, the scalability doesn't meet our demand in 2060, which is 400 gigawatts, which it is almost impossible without the technology of nuclear energy.
Okay, time is up. Thank you, Eben. Okay, so we will meet friends, family, panelists, and advisor over here for photos. And then we will have a lunch break, and we'll meet right back here at 12:15, starting with Angel. and then Wenson, and then Cheryl will finish us for the day. Thank you.